Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining Green Beacon Solutions presentation regarding Microsoft Dynamics AX 2012 for Distributors, Wholesalers. I'm John Kolakowski, the Director of Marketing, and Jeff Ash, the Delivery Manager for ERP, will be my co-presenter this afternoon. Just to give quick background about Green Beacon Solutions, we've been in business for nearly 10 years now. In fact, our 10th anniversary came up in September. Privately held, headquartered in Newton, Massachusetts, with offices throughout the Eastern Corridor in New York, Philadelphia, and Houston. We're a Microsoft Gold partner specializing in CRM and Microsoft Dynamics AX. We have over 100 Microsoft Dynamics customers nationwide, and we are backed by a highly experienced management team as well as 50 experienced team members. Now, without going into too much detail, we have 4 pillars here at Green Beacon Solutions. As I mentioned, we focus on Microsoft Dynamics AX and CRM, as well as several other enterprise applications. Our portfolio of services and offerings also with other Microsoft technologies within the stack, such as SharePoint, integration, reporting, all are cloud ready, and we also provide business intelligence, reporting, and analytics. We do offer managed services, aftermarket services, once the application has been integrated and is up and running. And finally, unlike many other Microsoft VARs and partners out there, we have a body of IP that we've branded as CompassPoint solutions. These industry solutions essentially leverage our expertise and best practices to develop point solutions that not only streamline the implementation cycle, but also provide third-party add-on applications once AX and CRM has been integrated. Finally, the foundation of Green Beacon's portfolio are our consulting services, built upon our unique Lightship methodology, which includes implementation, integration, solution architecture, project management, and custom software and enhancements. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Jeff Ash and let him discuss with you Microsoft Dynamics AX 2012 for Distributors, Wholesalers.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for signing in for our webcast here. I'd like to start by going over our agenda briefly. I'm going to begin with a review of some of the key features of Microsoft Dynamics AX 2012 as it relates to distributors and wholesalers. There are opportunities to learn more about Microsoft Dynamics AX 2012 on our website, and we have several video webcasts out there, so I'll refer you to that website, or our website, I should say, if you'd like to learn more about the product in general. Next, we'll discuss a critical component of the supply chain for our distributors and wholesalers, a program management model which also brings vendor-managed inventory to bear from within AX. Lastly, we'll cover CompassPoint solution, another of our core offerings that will have a nice help or provide a lot of support for our distributors and wholesalers, which helps to process remittance and deductions from large remittance files arriving from your customers. And finally, we'll wrap an opportunity to have a question and answer session. So what we'd like is if it were possible for people to either hold questions until the end, or if you want to queue up some questions as the presentation's going along, we can circle back on those at the end of the presentation. So first I'll start off with the high-level value proposition of Dynamics AX 2012. The primary proposition here is to simplify and create the complete application lifecycle of Dynamics AX. So this covers the implementation, the customization, the integration, usability, maintenance, upgrading to next versions, as well as applying new service packs, and also to keep your performance up to snuff as the system is live and matures. All of this with the net goal to help reduce the total cost of ownership of Dynamics AX 2012. Another key approach for the value proposition here is to improve financial capabilities to support companies who are operating in a global economy. Third on the list is to add more industry-enabling functionality for our target industries, providing best practices in areas such as supplier relationship management, human resources management, customer relationship management, expense management and compliance, as well as environmental sustainability. We're supporting new online services such as site services for case management and also vendor onboarding processes to improve collaborative scenarios, allowing your customers and your vendors to collaborate along with you to provide information directly into the AX system through a portal that they would use a web browser to access. Now I'll get into a overview of the major enhancements coming with Dynamics AX 2012, and most of these are not necessarily specific to distributors and wholesalers, but they will have an impact on many of the key features that you would be interested in. So starting at the top, there's a new system for modeling your organization. And inside of Dynamics AX 2012, the capabilities are added in order to define more organization types. The first organization type is a legal entity. Legal entity is a company that is defined through registration with a legal authority. This is very similar to the company accounts from the prior versions of Dynamics AX. It does use the concept of the data area ID or a company account, which is used to segment data within the system. However, legal entities are able to share quite a bit of information if you are a multi-company organization in AX. Also, Microsoft Dynamics AX 2012 supports financial statements with balance sheets only for the legal operation or legal entities. The other organization type within AX is called an operating unit. This allows you to help break down and create a structure within AX to split the way that your legal entities are operating. So an operating unit is an organization that is used to divide the control of economic resources and operational processes within your business units. Types of operating units are cost centers, a business unit, a value stream, and a department. So at the beginning of your implementation, when we're first doing a design or if we're upgrading from a prior version of AX, we would revisit this and decide how best to split your organization into various operating units. Lastly is organizational hierarchies. This allows you to create an org chart so you can to set up hierarchy of legal entities for tax and legal or statutory reporting purposes. Also, you could share parameters, policies, as well as transactions across these organizations. Another major enhancement is the concept of shared master data. The first area of that comes into play with what's called product information management. Products are now a global concept which can be deployed out to your various legal entities. So this basically will help simplify your integration between your intercompany transactions that are occurring in the organization. We'll talk more about that later on. The next area of shared master data are address books. So address books are set up, and they are not defined to a specific legal entity. So this allows contact information, information about people, and information about organizations that any of your legal entities will be interacting with, and it puts them all into a central place. So you only have to worry about keeping them up to date in one area in the system. Lastly, currencies are shared organization-wide. So exchange rates, currency setups, and all of that are a global setup and are shared across all of your legal entities. So your company accounts are now kept in sync that way.
All guests have been muted.
Up there, we are just having a little issue with our phone, but we're back up and running. So the next step of the major enhancements is Microsoft Office add-ins. Essentially what we're doing, or what is provided here, is an ability for users to leverage familiar tools such as Excel and Word within the Office suite to work with Dynamics AX data. This provides capabilities for exporting data, to modify that data, and to re-import that data or publish it back into AX. You can do all of this within AX. This also will be helpful for such things as creating your own Word templates that you would then deliver on to customers, such as quotes or sales forecasts, collection letters, and so on. The next area of enhancement is called the work items. The concept of a work item queue is introduced in Microsoft Dynamics AX 2012 to provide an alternative assignment and management model for task elements and workflows. So workflows can now be managed by a team of people who are using a shared work list. And as documents within that workflow transition from stage to stage, they will be able to be passed from one person to the next. And if it's not something specific for a particular user, it can be assigned to a queue, and anyone who is responsible for monitoring that queue can take that work item and take it to do the process that needs to occur against it. Document handling has improved a bit. There's now support for document URLs, so you can link to a document that is hosted outside of the Dynamics AX system. And there are also document file web services which allow metadata about attached documents within the AX system to be updated from outside of AX. So if there are some statuses or update dates or whatever else that are associated with a particular document, it can be managed outside of the system, typically from an Office application like Word or Excel. And lastly, they've decoupled the order management process from your inventory. So we're introducing the capability of selling and procuring products decoupled from inventory control, offering a lightweight approach that is attractive for businesses in scenarios that do not require the traditional integration of order management and inventory control. Some examples of this would be indirect procurement of goods for immediate consumption. So if you had employees who were doing their own procurements for things like office supplies, for which you wouldn't necessarily track that on inventory, but you would like to see that it's an expensable item, those types of transactions are supported in AX, and those inventory items would not, those transactions would not require the back-end inventory mechanism to support it. Trade of service projects or service products are also not tracked in stock anymore. Now we'll take a deeper dive into one of the key areas that is very specific or more specific for distributors and wholesalers, and this is the product information management module. Product information management module is designed to target the creation and maintenance of an enterprise products repository. So in your system, product definitions are created independently of a legal entity, and core values such as product number, type, and name are shared values across all of your legal entities. Some core values can be overridden by each legal entity that the product is released to. Some other terms related to this are product. A product is a uniquely identifiable product. It serves as a core product that does not vary, and therefore no product dimensions would be associated with that definition. The next concept is a product master, which is a standard or functional product representation that is the basis for configuring product variants. The variations are configured by selecting a particular configuration technology provided by AX 2012, and this can either be a set of predefined product dimensions, or you can use a product configurator while you're in a sales scenario. So at the time of working with the item, new configurations can be created. Those two items, products and product master, are defined globally in the system. I will go through the next steps that would happen in the typical process for how those would be deployed to your various legal entities. The final concept is what's called a product variant, and this is a configuration of a product master based on the choice of the configuration technology. So it can be predefined, as mentioned before, or it can be configured by using the Dynamics AX configurator tool. Once global products have been defined, they are then authorized for use in your various legal entities or company accounts within AX. The additional organizationally dependent details for each of these products as deployed to the legal entities, such as costing, coverage plans, taxation, etc., preferred vendors, are all set up on the released product information within each of the legal entities. So you can have a global product that's deployed to more than one company within AX, and each of those companies can have their own costing model or coverage plan or whatever for that specific item. The key is that the released product you see in each legal entity is now tied to a master set of products. So the general flow for product creation is to create and define the product, and that's the global setup. Then we release that product to various legal entities. You can do that in bulk or one-offs, however you would like to do it. The next is to define legal entity-specific data. So again, costing, coverage plans, all of the general fields that you're used to setting up now before you can start using an item in Dynamics AX. Last step, obviously, is to begin using that product in transactions, such as sales orders, purchase orders, and inventory journals. Product dimensions. These are set up for each legal entity the product is released into. So there are dimension groups for size, color, and configuration, which should be familiar to anyone who's currently using Dynamics AX. There are storage dimension groups, which also will look familiar, of site, warehouse, location, and pallet ID. Tracking dimension groups are changed a little bit, but provide the ability for serializing your inventory using serial numbers, as well as batch numbers. The next major enhancement is a sales and purchasing agreements. Microsoft AX 2012 has redefined and renamed the blanket purchase and sales order functionality. They've been renamed, essentially, to purchasing and sales agreement. The goal here was to provide a more organized way to view agreements and simplify the entry of agreements into Dynamics AX. Sales and purchase agreements are a contract that commits the customer to buy product in a certain quantity or amount over time in exchange for special pricing and or discounts. Purchase agreement, it works very similar, except it's a contract that you would have with a particular vendor to buy a product from them in a certain quantity or amount over time in exchange for special prices or discounts. Some highlights for agreements are that it supports purchase and sales agreements which are based on quantities or amounts, so a specific quantity or a dollar amount of the actual sales price or the purchase price on that item. You can apply the terms and conditions of a purchase agreement or a sales agreement, for example, payment terms, when you're creating a sales or purchase order by using the sales or purchase order details forms. So part of that agreement allows you to set some defaulting for the fields that would be set on the orders, the sales order or the purchase order. You can also define a validity period for purchase and sales agreements. The delivery date of a purchase or sale should be within the validity period of the requested ship date on a sales order, should be within the period. So essentially, these agreements can have start and end dates, and those end dates can be verified to make sure that the delivery of the product would occur within the specified period of the agreement, or the allowed extent of the agreement. You can put purchase and sales agreements on hold to control whether they're being available to agents during the ordering processes. You also do not have to make purchases from these agreements if you're ordering a particular item from the same item from that vendor. So just to give a brief example of what a sample purchase agreement might look like is our purchasing manager may negotiate a new agreement with a vendor to source packaging inserts for 10% off the purchase price. And that agreement could be valid for just the next 6 months or a net amount of $5,000. So after the vendor has agreed to this discount, we set up the purchase agreement by using the commitment type of product value with an expiration date of 6 months from today, and also select the maximum enforced checkbox so that the commitment can only be used up to $5,000 US. So for a sum of all purchase order lines that uses the commitment is how we would determine that we've gotten to that $5,000 maximum. Sales agreements work pretty much the same way. Sales reps can try to win business from new customers or whatever else to set up their own competitive pricing offerings to get them in the door or whatever else. So we could offer 5% off of all items that a particular customer orders from us for the next 3 months and put a maximum dollar value of $100,000 or whatever makes sense to you. Moving on from the sales agreements to trade agreements, Microsoft is introducing many improvements to trade agreements, including the following. Creation and maintenance of trade agreements is moved to journals for better control, usability, and transparency. It supports a single view that includes all trade agreements for a selected set of items, customers, or vendors. A much easier way to deal with and determine what's going on with your various trade agreements, which in prior versions of AX can get pretty complicated. It separates the roles for creating or maintaining your trade agreements and also provides a means for putting an approval workflow that will be handled by a separate user in AX. So you can have people approving trade agreements who are a separate role from those who would be creating and maintaining them. It also allows for bulk updates of existing trade agreements, also bulk inserts of trade agreements using the Excel add-ons. Trade agreement types with new functionality, so there's quantity changes. So they've added a new quantity field so you can specify a price is set for a explicit maximum. In prior versions of AX, you would just give a quantity threshold essentially that needs to be met or exceeded in order to get the next to get that trade agreement price to activate for your order or purchase order. But now you can set a ceiling on all of your trade agreements, so you don't always have to leave the last one, allowing up to an infinite quantity of purchase. There's a concept of setting these trade agreements up for generic currency. So this allows trade agreements to be set up for a single currency, and then you can use it for all currencies. And essentially what AX will do is the currency conversion calculations in real time. So you no longer have to set up your trade agreements for multiple currencies. Another feature is called smart rounding, and this applies rounding functionality, which is kind of a psychological thing, and basically goes off the base that sometimes, or it may be more likely that a person would purchase something that has a price tag of $19.99 as opposed to $20. So that smart rounding is a new feature in AX which you can choose to use. Intercompany. There are many improvements for intercompany functionality. The setup is simplified. Trading relationships are now shared across your companies. I'm using the term companies and legal entities interchangeably. They mean basically the same thing, and they are pretty analogous back to prior versions of AX. Relationships set up like this mean that you only have to set the intercompany relationship on one company, and then it will propagate to any others that are going to do business with that particular company account from within your AX system. Prior versions of AX required you setting up the reciprocal relationship everywhere, so this essentially reduces a lot of the setup work. Intercompany agreements can be modeled or are modeled on sales and purchasing agreements, so you can set up the same kind of agreement structure between your legal entities within AX, so selling with discounts or whatever else. Intercompany product setup is also simplified just by virtue of the fact that products are defined globally, so you don't have to worry about keeping item IDs in sync anymore or setting up mappings for item IDs that are not. You have a master item ID that all of your legal entities would use. Intercompany reporting has been enhanced. It is now possible to account for and report on the value of goods that are in transit between your legal entities. There's a new report called the Intercompany Goods in Transit Transaction Report, and this displays shipment transactions that include shipments to and receipts from a warehouse in a given period. The report displays key information on the inventory value, liability, and variance to standard cost. You can also export this report into Excel. Actually, you can export any of the Dynamics AX reports into into Microsoft Excel, allowing you to group data and perform some analysis on that data in a tool that is very familiar to most users. Intercompany planning has been improved as well, and the main improvement here is connecting demand and supply between companies, not only for the short term, but also in the longer term. So both items supplied from external vendors and from other companies within the organization will create a planned purchase order. However, planned purchase orders created for companies within the organization will have a direct effect on and link to the planning in these other company accounts. So when master planning is running for these other companies, they will see that there is a demand for some of their goods that's originating from a different company within your organization. Another enhancements for procurement and sourcing. One quick note, in AX 2012, the accounts payable module has been split into two separate modules. One module is called accounts payable, and the other is procurement and sourcing. And that's basically a split that's been made to help separate some of the functionality, so your purchasing can be different or using a different model essentially from the people who may be doing accounts payable activities with outside of purchase orders and whatever else. Change management has been added to ensure you are purchasing the correct supplies for the best prices. So this is a workflow which allows for different processes depending on the purchase order. For example, you could create automatic approval for purchase orders that are below or over a certain dollar value. Purchasing and delivery schedules allow you to split purchase order lines into multiple deliveries. The delivery schedule consists of an order line with multiple deliveries and then again delivery schedule lines. So you can have a single purchase order that's keeping track of a delivery schedule, and you can plan into the future by splitting these lines essentially directly on the purchase order form to plan out what your arrivals are going to be, or when your receipts are going to happen, and what that schedule will be. Purchase requisition enhancements can now be submitted for review, and the individual purchase requisition lines can actually be routed to specific individuals within your organization that may need to approve these things. So if there is a requisition put in place that two different people would have to approve because one is responsible for the first item and the other will be responsible for the second item, that routing can happen at the line item level at this point. Another nice concept is purchase requisition consolidation. This is a practical way to reduce your procurement costs for organizations. So as part of your review process, you can take notice of the fact that there are requisitions open for the same item from the same vendor, and you can group these together and perhaps get better prices. You can increase your leverage with your vendors when you're negotiating prices. So, and in the end, this is going to reduce your overhead because hopefully you're going to have fewer larger receipts of your purchases. And finally, there's the vendor self-service portal. This provides up-to-date information for your vendors about their own internal information, their products and services. They can also see current prices, and this provides a good way for you to collaborate with your vendors. Some of the key functions that are provided here are that vendors can now use the AX Enterprise Portal to create and change their contact information. They can add their own users, and they can also edit their own users to grant them access into and out of the Enterprise Portal to see their information. They can respond to RFQs directly on an Enterprise Portal, so a request for quote that you create within the ERP client would be visible and can be, there's a bidirectional conversation that can happen, the vendor talking to the Enterprise Portal and the internal user being able to see those updates directly through the Dynamics AX PIC client. They can also complete questionnaires, view reports, add any invoices or submit any invoices, or they can also do inquiries against payment status, line details, and charges, and whatever else for any existing purchase orders that they have out there. And that kind of concludes the high-level key features that we see as being great wins for distributors and wholesalers who would be using Dynamics AX 2012. The next part of the presentation is how Green Beacon has been able to take what AX brings to the table and take it to the next level for distributors and wholesalers. One of the key concepts here is vendor-managed inventory. And basically what we're trying to accomplish here is to provide a true 360-degree view of a distributor wholesaler supply chain. What we're seeing as kind of a theme here is distributors, customers are expecting the distributor and wholesaler to become more aware of what's going on in their shelves. So they want to know, and they want you to take responsibility for managing your inventory on their shelves. And also, what that's doing is that's reducing overhead. It's kind of for them, but it's adding risk for you and making it difficult to see everything that's going on from a purchase scenario from overseas or wherever else to actually that product going through a point of sales cash register at a retail store into a customer's pocket. So customers or distributors' clients are making inventory and sell-through data available, but it is up to you to figure out what you're going to do with that information. Vendor-managed inventory is a technique that helps to electronically connect all of your trading partners in order to facilitate planning and execution of your core supply chain process. And it's comprised of 5 major elements. First is visibility and connectivity, the ability to connect with your vendor and be able to, or connect with your customer and be able to download transactional information about so you can plan for demand as it moves forward. So these are some EDI transactions that are occurring as well as inventory planning. The fourth major element is replenishment planning. Using this raw sell-through information in a harmonized database to help us plan or help distributors plan for what they're going to need to be doing. So what kinds of goods are they going to need to be purchasing from their particular vendors, and where do they need to be planning to be delivering those goods out to their final customers. Finally, there's performance measurement and analytics. So how did we do? Were there any issues, and how do we make improvements on the next transaction or sale that we might do with a particular retailer? So why would we do vendor management inventory or vendor managed inventory? First is that managing inventory by stores at major retailers is a very difficult exercise. There's a lot of information, and it takes a long time to consolidate all of that. And also, what's selling during winter in Miami may not sell so well up in Chicago. So there's additional planning that needs to go on to figure out what makes the most sense. What are the proper items that we should be selling at particular stores within a retail chain? Product lines may also be reestablished seasonally, so you'll find yourself repeating the same kinds of sales. Holidays especially, you see a lot of Halloween stuff in the stores right now. That will happen again next year. And what it gets right down to is without the right tools, the tendency always ends up overfilling the supply chain. Too many goods are being ordered from the vendors, who are almost always overseas, which incurs a large shipping and freight cost, as well as tariffs and whatever else. Now you end up with this oversupply of inventory, and a lot of that ends up getting written down, or you're scrambling to try and figure out a way to get this stuff out of your warehouses so that you can move on to the next set of items that need to be delivered out to your customers. So here's kind of I won't say complicated, but there's a lot of boxes here. This is sort of a high-level view of the typical distributor or wholesaler supply chain process. So the boxes in blue going down on the left are kind of the generic terms, and they're in kind of a logical order of how this flow would occur. In the green are the core features of Dynamics AX, which provide a lot of the tools that you would be using in order to satisfy these requirements. And then again, on the right, there are many integrations that make sense to put in place rather than reinventing the wheel. One specific that I'll pick out is down kind of towards the bottom right there, for EDI. Typically, EDI is something that you would partner with a vendor who would provide EDI software that would communicate back and forth with Dynamics AX. So, starting from the upper left here, product development. Most distribution companies aren't really selling to big box retailers, are also manufacturers. They may not own the facilities or the factories out in the Far East or wherever they happen to be, but they are dictating what goes into those products and what the products are that are actually being built, probably doing a fair amount of design on the state side. So that makes distributors and warehouses very often manufacturers by default. The next step is the demand supply plan, and this is where we get into our vendor managed inventory, and this is a key place where it all starts. So we need real-time sell-through and harmonized databases that are not necessarily native to AX. And like as I'm going through here, this is a service that's offered by Green Beacon via a partnership with us, in which we would help harmonize the data, gather the data from your various customers to get you this harmonized database set up and have it kept up to date over time. Collaboration. So this is how distributors are interacting with their manufacturers. Enterprise Portal is the key tool for this, and Green Beacon has enhanced Enterprise Portal to provide more targeted and easier interaction with vendors to do things like requesting quotes for particular items, to communicate designs for particular items, and also to request specific examples of sample products from your vendor, be it a pre-production sample or just a sample to get a feel for what they're going to put out there for you. Step 4 is the vendor managed inventory. So the distributors are now more responsible for managing their customer inventory. So this is evolving as retailers are pushing responsibility onto the distributors. And that's what we're talking about right now. Next are trade and promotions. So AX CRM has campaign management that comes out of the box, which aligns with the needs of distributors and market segments. So you can use your campaigns to help plan and track the cost of your promotions or where you're trying to go with your vendor, with your customers. Virtual manufacturing. This is the act of contracting with various manufacturers wherever they happen to be, managing the production process, keeping track of what it's going to take or how long it's going to take before things start to arrive, shipping them overseas, as well as getting into the master planning stages, as well as communicating with those vendors if there are any issues, or do we need to see some samples or provide some quality feedback on any of those samples. Customer service is a feature that allows us to help our customers basically place the proper purchase orders for a lot of in a lot of situations. That's basically where we're going with this, is instructing users on how to place orders with us, giving them item definitions and whatever else, so ensuring that the retailer is able to deal with the goods that we're going to start shipping to them direct to store or potentially through distribution centers. Warehousing is involved with cartons and receiving product, doing put away using a mobile warehouse solution, so handhelds that are processing the receipts of various goods as they arrive from the overseas containers and are moved into your various distribution centers. And again, through the pick and the pack process as you're going to process sales orders and deliver them out to your customers. Finally is overseas logistics. So this is transit management, keeping track of the cost of shipment, keeping track of any legal documentation that needs to be presented to get various goods through customs and whatever else, and also to provide documents for your brokers. So there's also an additional feature for your brokers to log into the enterprise portal and print out all of these documents as they relate to various transits or shipment records of goods that are moving from one country to the next.
Just to clarify one thing too, going back to the previous slide, what we've done here in the blue is to identify the key components of vendor-managed inventory as we see it based on market research and analysis. The two green center columns are actually not only solutions that we focused on within Dynamics AX 2012, but these are actually capabilities that we, Green Beacon, have built upon, and we have point solutions available through us to enhance the capabilities of AX 2012 for distributors and wholesalers. Now, the yellow column on the right side, what we've done is identified those components or capabilities that are no less important, but rather than focus our energies on building solutions which are already available, we've actually partnered with third-party vendors to provide a seamless solution. So, for example, up at the top, Visual PLM, because it's such an in-depth type of product that would be required, rather than focus our energies and resources on building a PLM solution where there are plenty of other vendors available out there, we've partnered with best-of-breed solution providers. So again, just to recap, the green columns in the center are those capabilities that we built upon within AX 2012 to enhance its capabilities specifically for distributors and wholesalers.
So what does this all mean? And essentially what we're proposing here is what's called a program lifecycle. It helps you to leverage all of those functional areas we listed before and to manage them in a process or kind of a very complicated workflow, allowing everyone who needs to collaborate at their various points to do what they need to do. But it does come down to 6 essential steps. The first is product development, where you're designing and then negotiating with various vendors about the cost to produce a particular set of items. We want to create statistically sound proposals for when we're communicating with our customers. So we have something to bring to the table and also some backup information when we're talking to buyers from our various customers. We want to work with these proposals and our buyers from our particular customers to assemble programs, which would be a combination, or it could be a single proposal, or it could be items from many proposals all brought together into a program that will be active for a limited period of time. Next, we're going to negotiate supply contracts with our vendors for the rollout, so the initial inventory that's going to be delivered to our customers, as well as any replenishment quantities if we're going to be responsible for keeping the shelves stocked at our vendors or at our customers' sites. The next is to start our replenishment process internally, but to do it as leanly as possible. So the entire supply chain is based on our sell-through and a statistically valid forecast. This information would be coming from that harmonized database that we've mentioned before of vendor-managed inventory information. The next step is to stage the next program. What are we going to do next for our customer? So this is kind of a diagram here I'll go over pretty quickly, but basically it gives you kind of a high-level view of what the product development process. So many of these programs can be happening at the same time. So you may be doing a lot of product development. Those new items can be incorporated into programs and also can be added to seasonal line presentations, which you would then maybe go out and market to various customers, Kohl's, Walmart, whoever the customer may be. Now, existing products can also be reincorporated or reused in other products, or we may decide that they're not useful, so they can be removed and we can figure out what to do with those items. But we have valid data that helps us figure out and make an appropriate and responsible decision with how to move forward. So again, the steps to managing a program. First, we start with developing a set of products. We use our sell-through information maybe to help guide the direction that we're going. Carefully use categories to help keep everything sorted out. There's going to be a lot of products under design, and many of these may not see the light of day, essentially, but we need to be very careful with how those things are organized. We'll collaborate with vendors so that we can have real-time feedback, especially in situations where you have a vendor who may be making something for you that's 11 or 12 time zones away. Makes it quite difficult to manage communication. So if you have one portal that's available to them that's updating data directly in AX, your users are not being forced to keep track of where things stand. It's all right there in Dynamics AX. We want to create statistically sound proposals. These are the proposals we're going to walk into our purchaser or into a purchasing office. We're going to have a meeting with our customer. And we want to have those statistics with us so we can make an argument as to why we're going one way or the other. We're going to assemble those accepted proposals into our managed program. Now I'm going to show a few screenshots. This is actually from a live implementation of AX 2009. I do want to just point that out because this is being upgraded. It will be available for Dynamics AX 2012 shortly, but this kind of just helps it gel to show you what we're proposing here. So the first thing is reference item or a quick create form, which allows you to create a new reference item and also to request a sample from a particular vendor. In addition to this, you may also attach files. So if you have any design files that you're creating, if you took a picture or someone drew a sketch or whatever else, that design development file will be added and can be added right here and incorporated directly. What does that do? That creates an item. It may create a request for quote if you checked off the request for quote button. And that's going to put a quote out onto the vendor portal for the vendor that was selected. You may submit these requests for quotes to multiple vendors if you would like. Any documents that you attached to that item create form are available directly from the vendor portal, and also you see here some design or some detail forms that allow the vendor to provide details or to answer, give you a price that they're quoting, a ship date that they think they can give to you, as well as any comments that might be there. Again, switching back into the AX to client, broadcasting RFQs, you can see that we can send a request to many vendors simultaneously. This is standard AX 2012 and 2009 functionality. We can track, compare, and accept or reject any responses that are coming back from our vendors as they arrive. Any price we accept is then moved onto a trade agreement for that vendor, so it's automatically captured within the system. Monitoring our sell-through. This data is available from various sources. It depends on the customer. Maybe EDI, it may be a website that you go to and download, or a web service, or whatever else. We would take that data and move it into what we're calling the harmonized database, and this will help provide your development guidance and give you the ability to back up your decisions and where you're going with these things statistically, to be able to make a case with your buyers and also internally which direction you want to go. Once we have our items together, we put our proposals and our vendor-managed inventory harmonized data and made our decisions, we will assemble proposals. Proposals are just a collection of items that we're going to propose to a buyer, maybe with some quantities or whatever else, those kinds of metrics associated with it. And essentially, we're going to go to the buyer and show them our proposal, and may go back and forth with them a little bit as we decide what we're actually going to be selling. Proposals can be exported into Excel, and new items can be added from within Excel, and also quantities of items that are being applied to this proposal. If you want to give some costing estimates or whatever else for the purchaser, those all can go into Excel. And once they're in Excel, they can be converted into formats that a customer may require in order to load into their system if they have that requirement in place. So our presentation tool, we're calling it a fast presentation tool, but really what this is each proposal. It has the ability to take items from other proposals and quickly copy them into a new proposal. So you can merge, you can modify customer data, you can also export any of these proposals to Excel. That gets us into what's called a managed program. Once we have some agreement on the proposal or proposals that are going to become part of our next program with a particular customer, we will take those and we will create what's called a program. The program has a dashboard, and we use that as a single point for creating, managing, or creating the program itself, managing all of the various steps that go into getting these items created and assembled and carded and put tickets on it, etc. Costing all of those items, replenishment planning for all of those items, so figuring out what do we think we're going to need to do when we're 2 months into this program, how much inventory do we think we're going to need to have, and where do we think it's going to need to go. And so this is a screenshot of the dashboard here, the programs. It displays a list of programs at the top, and then basically any program that's highlighted, there are check boxes and also some icons that tell you what status it is behind each of those items. So have they been costed? Have we received all of our samples? Have all of our samples been approved? Is our vendor on board? Do we have everything we need from the vendor so that they've given us a date that they're going to be able to deliver on the commitment? And then this is just a list of all of the managed program functions. So I won't go through all of them in detail, but these are essentially all of the features that are provided. And it gets you all the way down into your vendors. It shows you everything that needs to be there and manages the entire process from the initial research and creation of design of items all the way to that point where it's on the shelf in your vendor's location, or I'm sorry, in your customer's location, ready for sale. So we've integrated the program with delivery management. So there's vendor and IT logistics. There's warehouse receiving processing. Our warehouse handheld solution is an easy way to incorporate handhelds and to process the receipt process of goods as they arrive from overseas. Moving on to the next step, which would be sales order processing. So the customer had maybe submitted a purchase order via EDI or however it gets entered into the system. But again, that is managed as part of this solution. The picking and packing process, as well as quality control and final shipments, so bills of lading, or if we're doing shipping by truck, or if we are shipping by a common carrier such as FedEx or UPS, that's also supported as well, integrating with the shipping terminals. So what's important here? It's keeping our costing simple and allowing us to keep track of the costing as we go along. So for every program we have a cost of every item, and we can export that information into Excel. We can even go back and forth, so you can export and modify and upload those costs into Excel. You're refining these until you're finally live with the program, and now you've got all your costing tracked, so you know what it's going to cost to deliver this entire proposal. The program will generate your purchase orders based on the quantities that were set as part of that program design process. We use the purchase order system, and we create accrual of all the cost lines by purchase order receipt. So as you receive goods, we are able to attribute costs of moving them into the country, such as freight costs as well as any duty costs. At the end of a program, you can do our analysis to settle any of those accrual counts, specifically for freight and for duty, and figure out if there were any issues. And if we can, at that point, we can address any of those issues as they've happened. And finally, we can evaluate a profitability by specific program and then with the customer. So again, better statistics, being able to approach our customer with more information and help them understand where we are, so that we can potentially negotiate better pricing and make better decisions with the customer on how to move forward. So just a quick recap here, and then I'll turn it over to John. But vendor managed inventory is on the rise, and many more people are expected, or many more retailers are expecting their distributors and wholesalers to participate in this process. The key points here are to use sell-through statistics that are in a harmonized database to help you as a distributor to make proper decisions with product development and product design. to make statistically sound proposals to your customers, and then lean out your replenishment supply chain. Use a managed program which helps coordinate all of these activities. All of these activities are built off of standard AX functionality, but there is quite a bit that needs to happen and a lot of coordination that needs to be done in order for this to work. So we're integrating with an ERP system, and we're facilitating knowing the cost of doing business with our customers as part of this program process. This enables our lean supply chain. It also enables us to do meaningful evaluation of what happened over a specific program and over our relationship with a particular customer. And then finally, benefits. This increases our planning effectiveness. It lowers cost. It improves your cash flow through better costing and pricing. You know the cost of servicing your customer much earlier in the process. It also improves your sales by targeting trends originating from your harmonized database. If you see items that are very popular right now, sometimes trends, fashion trends especially, or whatever else will change. So you need to be able to react to those things as quickly as possible, and this gives you an opportunity to do that. Finally, we're lowering your inventory costs by segmenting your demand down to the program level. So you can plan for store packs and whatever else you're going to put on the stores on the shelves at your customers' stores, but you can also control your obsolescence of items as well. So I'm going to turn it back over to John to close things out a bit, and I'll be back one last time to do one last slide. But again, thanks for everything so far. I hope you're enjoying the presentation.
Thanks, Jeff. There's actually been a lot of great information here, and I know we've gone into a level of granularity that I hope was worthwhile to you. We are running a bit low on time, so I want to be sensitive to everyone's calendar. Just a quick recap of our relationship with Microsoft. We've been a Gold partner since 2002. We have over 75 Microsoft certifications across various Microsoft business products. We're a proud member of Microsoft's Partner Advisory Council, as well as their Distribution Solution Center. I talked a little bit early on about our partnerships. This is just a quick breakdown of some of the strategic relationships that we have with various ERP and CRM providers that deliver capabilities that we don't necessarily deliver, although we have the functional expertise as well as the industry expertise to collaborate with them to deliver a holistic solution to you. Now, finally, we talked quite a bit early on about our CompassPoint industry solutions, and just to clarify what they are, our CompassPoint solutions actually serve two purposes. They're a body of IP, intellectual property, that we've collected throughout the past 10 years through our various industry and functional engagements. And what we've done is we've developed what I would call business software accelerators. So by leveraging our IP, it actually streamlines the implementation cycle, reduces project cost, while extending the capabilities of Microsoft Dynamics AX. But overwhelmingly, what it allows us to do is the consultant or the Green Beacon expert that's working with you can focus on those unique challenges that you may be facing within your specific business. Again, they're built on our industry knowledge and our code, so it's pre-existing code. It's coupled with our best practices, and they've been refined over hundreds of successful project implementations. These are also industry specific, so outside of distribution wholesale, we also offer them for professional services, for manufacturing, as well as for banking and financial services. So these targeted solutions not only enhance the capabilities, streamline the implementation cycle, but they seamlessly integrate within your unique business process. And one of the ones that we quickly like to go over as it relates to distribution wholesale is remittance and deductions management. And I'll just let Jeff quickly comment on this one.
So what this is a CompassPoint solution which is in the final stages of development, and essentially what this does is addresses the issue of processing large remittance files that may be arriving via EDI or any other means. Oftentimes customers are providing remittances that include invoice deductions, off-invoice deductions, many invoice payments. So what this does is provide an ability for importing these remittance files into AX and processing them in an efficient way. So from a standpoint of getting the data in, there's a couple options for doing that. You can always key it in manually, but again, depending on integration points, you can import the files using the Dynamics AX add-ins for Office using Excel or something of that nature, as well as a direct EDI integration of maybe a document number A20. What this allows you to do is to have a workbench which will allow you to decide how to handle the various deductions that may have been taken by a particular customer from within a remittance file. And in the end, what this does is allow you to process these large advices much more easily, and also to control how these deductions are being processed. So again, at a high level and in the interest of time, I'll leave it short at that, but this is something that you'll be able to find more information on our website following the presentation.
Thanks, Jeff. We're actually coming up on the hour, but I did want to give people a chance to ask any questions they might have. In the live meeting tab, you'll see a Q&A button. If you have any questions that you'd like to pose, feel free to click on that and type in your questions. Again, being sensitive to everyone's time, if you prefer to digest the information, we'll send you a copy of this recorded presentation, and I've put our contact information up, including an email address you can email your questions to, or you can just give us a call directly if you prefer. Having said that, are there any questions? Okay. I appreciate everyone's time this afternoon. That concludes our presentation. And again, feel free to contact us or visit us on the web if you have any questions.